All right, so I just had an opportunity to do a first drive impression with the Lucid Gravity. I'm looking at the road, we can watch the road. Because a lot of you have been asking about Lucid Gravity versus the R1S, which is the car that we daily drive. My wife daily drives anyway. We have the R1T and the R1S, but these two are kind of competitors because of their price point and overall size being three-row vehicles. They're very different vehicles. I found a few things very interesting about the Gravity. First of all, I think this black on black looks awesome. This has some of the same problems though that Tesla has had when you run it through car washes and you get the acidic sort of, tarnished look on the trim here. But we have these ultra efficient hand-cooked tires with these aero inserts, so that really helps. But the black on black looks good. And the inside of this vehicle is particularly beautiful. Here, I'll go ahead and roll the windows down here. So my camera person can come up. This is called the Tahoe interior. It's a really nice color scheme, really comfortable. And what's amazing about this car is that the materials quality in general is just really high. Some of the early reviews had talked about, some hit or miss on the materials quality. I think this is fantastic for this price point. One thing that I will add some B-roll here in just a second about is you get things like physical controls for the vents, physical controls for temperature up and down, fan speed, that kind of stuff. But you also have a big expansive screen. And I'm 6'4", and with the squircle steering wheel design, I can clearly see the entirety of the above screen with zero interruption, which is very, very nice. You also get this big glass windshield, very similar and reminiscent of the Model X. It comes all the way back to the B pillar before the glass starts. And other than that, you still get a lot of glass in here in general. You do have cameras all the way around. This has the upgraded Dream Drive Pro, which is quite expensive. I believe it's around $7,000. That does give you the bird's eye view similar to the Rivian, but the quality of the cameras is far worse. This was very notable when taking out on the freeway and doing lane changes, anything of that nature. The resolution is closer to Gen 1 Rivian than Gen 2. So I know we're spoiled by having the most megapixels on the market right now with our Gen 2 R1S and R1T, but that was really apparent on the comparison here. One thing to note too about the Dream Drive Pro, this vehicle does come equipped with LiDAR. So if it comes here to the front, you actually do have LiDAR integrated. This is one of the better integrations I've seen of LiDAR into the vehicle. There's no hump on the top, so that's great, but that's a pretty big upgrade in cost without a big upgrade in feature set. I did notice that the traffic aware cruise control was excellent on this vehicle. It is better than what we have on the R1S, which has improved since we've owned it. Maybe not quite as good as FSD level, version 13 from Tesla, but very, very good, very, very smooth. The current lane keeping only works on divided highways. It is not hands-off. One kind of quirk though, which I think is sort of a reoccurring theme here, even with some of the updates, I know it's still a relatively new car, but we immediately saw software stuff with it. The mapping system got lost and spun around several times, and repeatedly, even without using any of the driver assistance packages, it was frequently nagging me to look at the road when I was clearly looking at the road. I believe the sensor is the one right above the steering wheel, but even if it's using a camera up above, even with my hat, I'm very tall, and at all times it had a clear view of my face. So that kind of stuff would be definitely annoying. But as far as packaging overall, I think they've done an amazing job of getting a ton of capacity in here, breaking up the battery and putting it into the least used parts of the cabin, keeping a nice, low load floor overall, which is fantastic. We'll see if we can try to get the camera over here. Really nice interior. And when you are in this second row, you have this really cool feature when you have the comfort upgrade of this, let's see if I can trigger it here, of this airline seat. This is actually one of the coolest things. You have a little notch here for an iPad or an iPhone and a place to actually work on your computer. So that is pretty fantastic. USB-C right there in front, and as well as a screen. This has a quad zone temperature control, so you have the ability for the rear passenger, left and right, to have their own temperatures and have more control over what's going on within the system. They have a really slick integration of the third row. where the seats can actually hide away completely, give you a really nice load flat floor. And so that is amazing. And then most importantly is this is the first Lucid product that has the NACS port. So, and it is in the correct position. It is in the back left position. So if you are trying to do a road trip and you want to pull up to a Tesla supercharger, you don't want to use an adapter, you can go ahead and use NACS and get squared away. So that's a really nice addition in there as well. All right, so let's go ahead and come around to the trunk here. And as you can see, like other Lucid Airs, they've wrapped the trunk around the outer edge. And so in here, you can actually pull this and you can see the gap where these two seats in the third row can completely disappear down below. So that's pretty excellent. There we go. All right, so you got that. And then you even have the second row. So when I push this for the second row to go flat, it pushes the seat forward. Doing it to the driver's seat now as well. Drop that second row. And then, let's see here, how do I, see if I can figure out how to, there we go. And then now, once that's down, these can drop all the way down. So, and then you can put this back in place. And as you can see, when all the second and third rows are down, you get this huge volume. Now you do have a big gap you have to deal with, but you can imagine for car camping, this would actually be pretty excellent overall. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave those down. Now, one other big difference here is you'll probably notice with the ride heights here, the entry and exit levels on these two vehicles is significantly different. So this vehicle is made to forward up to 43 inches of water with the all-terrain package like we have here, and once you're in the right suspension settings. This vehicle is not, but that means if you have little kids or elderly that need to get in and out of your vehicle, this is gonna be a lot easier for them to get in and out of. Now, one of the big questions is minivan or not minivan? If you look at the silhouette, it looks a lot like a very expensive minivan, but it does not have the sliding doors, even though they have a lot of other thoughtful features, such as the way that they cut out on this bump into here. This cutout here is going to make it easier to get in and out of that third row, but it is not a sliding door. And I think that's a bit of a miss. It's why we haven't seen an actual true electric minivan is kind of beyond me. I think you already have the silhouette there. I know that minivans aren't cool, but there is a lot of people that would love a really high-end, really performant, really luxurious minivan with the utility of the sliding door. I think that's something that they should have at least considered here. I'm sure they did. I also don't love that they went away from the frame windows in the Lucid Air to the frameless here in the Gravity. But overall, I would say it's pretty nice. One big notable upgrade of this over the Rivian is the sound system. There is actual bass. There's actually just out of the box, even over Bluetooth, this system for the sound sounds way better than even the most recent 2025.38 software with all of the EQ controls. And so if you care about audio and you want a nicer luxury experience, the Lucid is the way to go. If you want a more rugged vehicle and actually at this point more polished software, that's actually the Rivian. Now Tesla has even polished software further, but that is sort of the distinction on these software-defined vehicles. The last thing I'll leave you with is, it sort of surprised me, is that this A pillar here was a significant blind spot when driving around. And I also felt that the suspension, while smooth, especially if you're on like nice pavement, it is beautiful. But the rough pavement in general, you kind of can't get around the fact that it's still a big, heavy EV. And so, these weird, large tires aren't doing you a whole lot of favors. It's not going to be as smooth as a comparable gas car in the same price range. And one final bit is no matter what configuration you go with, you're going to have a staggered tire set, which means no standard rotation of your all-wheel drive setup here because the back wheels are larger than the front wheels. The only vehicle like that from Rivian is going to be the quad motor when you get the super sport wheels, but every other configuration, including every other wheel configuration you have on the quad, allows you to do a standard rotation of tires. I know it's a performance car thing, but from a utility standpoint and having owned a car with staggered tires, that for me would be a significant negative. So anyway, this is the first impression of the Lucid Gravity Drive. This is one of the higher end trims. This is not the Dream Edition, but this is really well equipped, 800 and something horsepower, plenty of power. This is a great EV, but I think for my money in the same, $100-ish thousand price point, I think the improved autonomy status of where the Rivian is today and where it's going to be very, very soon, and the overall software fit and finish for me would be a significant boom. But the sound system and luxury feel of the Gravity is superior to the Rivian. So it kind of depends on what your priorities are. So I hope you enjoyed that. That's my first drive impression. Until next time, stay curious.